Hello everyone, this is my keyboarding integration rationale. Out of the articles that were assigned, I found the Education World and the New York Times articles the most relevant. The Education World article points out that not all teachers are qualified to teach keyboarding, and this is so true. I have tried to provide keyboarding instruction to my young students, and it's not easy. A keyboarding teacher needs to be trained in methods that are age-appropriate and relevant to different types of instruction. The New York Times article also mentions how important handwriting is to reading instruction. In my classroom, I'm teaching students how to read, and they need to make connections between letters and sounds. Typing the letters on a keyboard is not going to make the same connection as writing the letters on paper. I'm also teaching about spatial reasoning in this geometry unit. Identifying or drawing the shapes on a tablet or computer is not going to be as relevant as playing with three-dimensional shapes would be for a kindergartner. The purpose of keyboarding integration is to prepare students for our increasingly technological education system. It is important for students to be able to effortlessly navigate a keyboard in order to successfully complete online assessments in a timely manner. My goals for integrating keyboarding into my kindergarten math curriculum are to combine keyboarding with hands-on handwriting instruction so that my students get the best of both worlds. Geometry is a perfect time to incorporate iPads into my math curriculum. I need my young students to acquire spatial reasoning knowledge and fine motor strength in order to be able to both identify and form geometrical shapes. I would begin by allowing my students to play with 3D shape blocks. We would do roll and slide experiments and talk about the vocabulary. After that, I would reinforce my instruction by having my class use a stylus or their finger to draw shapes on an iPad. We would practice the shape formation, write the name of the shape, which brings in the handwriting, and then we would type the names of the shapes, which brings in the keyboarding. It would be important for me to use my weekly computer instruction time to teach the skills that my students would need to use the technologies. The ABC website has a lot of tools that I can use to integrate handwriting, keyboarding, and math all at one time. And I want to show you guys some of the things that I would do. The first thing is a game which uses spatial reasoning and mousing skills, and keyboarding. The kids have to be able to drag and click to match the shapes, bring them over and put them. I put it in the wrong spot. It actually fits up here. They have to know the shape and where it will fit, which is exactly what spatial reasoning is. And they also have to know how to navigate this slide rule right here, which is an important keyboarding function that kids need to learn how to do. So this game incorporates that too. The other keyboarding game that I would use besides handwriting or keyboarding without tears, which I've talked about before, would be, it's basically a cup stacking game where the kids put their hands on the home row and they have to type the letters that are lighting up using proper form. And this is where teaching would have to come in. If you see them hunting and pecking, you need to teach them to go back to the home row, use the proper letters and proper fingers. And the other one that I mentioned before was this I would do on an iPad. I would use something similar to this, where the students would have to first form the shape. I need to do that. They would have to form the shape. So this is incorporating fine motor skills. And then they would have to put the shape on here. So they would have to identify it, make another one. They would then use their handwriting skills to write the name, because it's part of the Common Core that they have to be able to recognize not only the shape but the name of the shape. And then finally they would type the name. So this brings all of it first full circle: the handwriting, the keyboarding, the fine motor, and the math. So back to my next. I considered all of the articles, but the New York Times article and the Education World article were the most relevant for me. I do believe strong keyboarding skills are going to be necessary for my students to be successful in the very near future. I believe if you can type fluidly, it helps your thoughts flow more freely. However, I think that young students especially need the multi-sensory motions required for good handwriting, especially if it will translate into better reading skills. I did come into this subject with the assumption that young students today would naturally acquire strong keyboarding skills, simply because of the large amount of time that they spend with computers and smartphones. I can see now this generation of students will need even more direct keyboarding instruction in order to undo a lot of the bad habits that they have already. I also assumed that anyone could teach keyboarding until I tried it myself. It's not easy to instruct students to find the proper keys on a keyboard. It takes a skill set and a level of patience that I'm not sure very many people have. I also assumed that handwriting wasn't that important for older students anymore. I knew that it was important for my young learners, but I didn't think older kids really needed it until I read the articles about the way the brain reacts differently when writing and typing. This integration is meant to address the one or the other approach to handwriting and keyboarding. I intend to use both equally to allow students to think more than one way and increase the depth of their learning. This integration is also intended to address the time constraints that teachers have by integrating math, handwriting, and keyboarding. Using the construction game to teach shapes allows my students to increase their spatial reasoning through play instead of using direct teacher-centered instruction. The outcomes of integrating keyboard into a kindergarten math curriculum will be multiple. First, the students will develop stronger keyboarding skills, which will help them across the curriculum. This will mean less stress for them in the future. If they are confident in their typing skills, their writing will be more fluent, which will build their confidence as learners. I use the constructivist theory. It says that people come to their own understanding and knowledge of the world through experiencing things and reflecting on those experiences. This theory is evident in this curriculum because I began by allowing the students to first experience the shapes through play. Then I encouraged them to reflect on their knowledge by using keyboarding and online games. I also use the learning through play model. It has been proven over and over again that young children learn best when playing. This integration will allow my students the opportunity to play and learn. Finally, I considered the connectivist theory when thinking about this integration. The connectivist theory, according to Wikiversity.com, says that learners recognize and interpret patterns and are influenced by the diversity of networks, strength of ties, and their context. Transfer occurs by connecting. Students will make math, reading, handwriting, keyboarding, and fine motor connections in this unit, and will be able to translate their learning from one area to another. The implications or consequences of integrating keyboarding into my kindergarten math curriculum are that core subjects may seem to receive less instructional time. Also, keyboarding, when taught improperly, can lead to bad habits that can be hard to break later. It is important that proper form and good habits are created. Finally, students may lose important reading connections if too much emphasis is placed on keyboarding.